Hey there, guys. It's Dexter here. I bet this is a surprising sight, considering that I haven't been on YouTube in a hot minute. But I thought I'd dip my toes back in with a video that I've been wanting to make for a little while. This is obviously my most popular video ever, for better or worse, about League of Legends. League of Legends is garbage, and here's why. And I kind of wanted to take a look back at it to see what's changed in the time since I released this video, not only for the game itself, but also for my own personal opinions. And I'm kind of curious to see what is going on here. I haven't watched this video in ages, so there's probably a bunch of stuff that I forgot about it. I'm just kind of interested to go back in and see what the vibe is. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. This video is obviously unscripted, well, obviously, I mean, I don't know if that was obvious, but it is unscripted, so bear with. But yeah, this is just going to be a reaction video of sorts, so let's get into it.
Okay, so I feel like I shouldn't have to mention this, but while some of my opinions here are exaggerated for entertainment purposes or comedic effect, these are my opinions.
Okay, first off, like, this little bit, right? This little bit, I really don't know why I did it like this. I remember it was just, I was kind of being a bit lazy about it. I kind of wanted to have a disclaimer at the start so people wouldn't get mad at me, which obviously didn't work out. But it's just so funny hearing it back. And it's also really bad, so I don't know why exactly I did it like that, but oh well.
If I see one comment about how I'm treating talking points as fact, I swear I'll...
Right. Okay, so I will say a lot of people still did do that, and it is still annoying. Even if I was wrong in some areas, which I'm sure we'll get to, there are some points that I remember that I'm being like, I don't know about that. But still, it was still annoying when people did that. So if you're one of those people, you're kind of annoying. Subjectivity is implied because it's my video. So obviously it's my opinion. I don't have to announce that, but a lot of people don't seem to understand that, unfortunately. Anyway, let's get into it. I still love that. I still love that first edit. That's good. Okay,
Really,
that is
I've been
horrible.
putting off
Oh
making
my
this video
god.
for the longest time. I thought maybe someday I'll get it.
Wow, just aside from everything, old Volibear is hitting me like a truck. Like, oh my god, that's my boy. I'm pretty sure this is like some of the last Volibear footage ever recorded.
But then, Eternals came out. What the hell? When I...
So, we'll get to this because I'm getting into that in more detail. But, well, I mean, I guess they didn't really do Eternals anymore. That's something.
For a while, I have been compiling a list of what I believe to be the majority of issues plaguing League of Legends, from gameplay to game modes to smurfing. I have seen...
Oh god. Well, I mean, I guess it is a problem. I just don't know if I would consider it like one of the main issues of the game anymore. But we'll get to this. We'll get to this. I mean, there's definitely a few issues in there that are
people in my
worth
immediate vicinity talk about what
worth
I perceive
analyzing.
to be major flaws.
Oh man, Eternals was the worst thing to ever happen. That's crazy.
The good.
Okay, well let's hear it. What's the good?
Okay, so, to pretend like I have some semblance of nuance in my feelings towards League, I want to be fair.
Wait, to pretend like I have some semblance of nuance. Well, I mean, to be fair, I did name the video "League of Legends is garbage," and here's why. But I mean, that's a pretty rich thing to say. Like, I mean, I don't know why I didn't just weave this more naturally into the other stuff, but I guess the rest of this video is talking about like how League of Legends sucks. I don't know. I feel like there might have been a more natural way to include this in some of the other sections.
To start with the strongest point for this game, the character designs are superb across the board. I am only referring to their looks here, their kits are a whole different story entirely. But man, the character designers at Riot are so incredibly talented.
I still 100% agree with this. Like, I don't think that League of Legends would be anywhere near as successful as it is without that component, without like the appeal of the character designs. They do so much of the heavy lifting, be it in their base forms as well as their skins and everything. I still stand by that point 100%.
The visual effects in-game make it very clear what champion you're dealing with,
Yep.
assuming they don't wear any skins, so I got basically no complaints there.
I think this was definitely like the skin thing was definitely more of a thing of being a newcomer, because now I would say that it is still pretty evident in most cases. There are a few exceptions, like that one Lee Sin skin. I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, but like there's one Lee Sin skin that I think people confuse with like one other character. There's so many of these that like I can't even remember. But I aside from that, I don't really think there are a lot of skins that change the the utility of the characters or the appearance of the characters to a point where they are unrecognizable as themselves at a glance, right? So I don't think I really agree with that anymore. No.
In line with that, the voice acting for the champions is all pretty good as well.
Yeah.
I like Volibear.
I
He's
do
a
like
swell
Volibear.
bear dude, and he flips people under the tower, and he munches on them. His voice is also badass, and he's just cool. It's a shame they ruined his rework, though. Oh, oops, this was supposed to be a good section, right? Either way, he's...
Okay, so that's another thing. I don't agree with that anymore. Like, I think his rework is actually completely fine. Like, I just didn't like that the one I frankly just didn't like the one character that I played was essentially being removed from the game. I still don't think he plays entirely like old Volibear, but I do think the spirit they definitely managed to capture, and there's just a lot more room for skill expression in his current kit. So I would say that overall it was better for the game to have new Volibear than old Volibear. But yeah, they did remove him, and at the time I was just a bit salty about that.
Let's see, ARAM is also an alright game mode, I guess.
All right, ARAM is great. I love ARAM. ARAM is really fun. In fact, it is probably outside of Arena nowadays the game mode that I come to the most. I don't really care that much for Summoner's Rift anymore. And so ARAM is just a really nice chill time. It's fun. Like, ARAM is really fun. I don't really have a lot of complaints about it.
And that's it. That's all the good things I have to say about League, really.
That's it. When you look at it in such broad terms, it's kind of easy to say, I guess. I want to say that this video is both sort of a reaction video, like as in do my opinions still hold up, and also a video that aims to be sort of retrospective in what's happened in League the past couple of years from like a casual perspective. And so I'm sure I'll come to some good points as we go through the bad stuff. But I definitely don't think that this is all that's good about League. I mean, there's definitely a lot that goes into it. It is definitely a bit dismissive. There's definitely a lot more, like the amount, the variety of like characters with different like kits on display, I think overall, like the overall art direction, is quite like, I mean, it's not like the best looking game you've ever seen, but it definitely has its own style, that is very recognizable. And I think it looks good for what it is, even if a lot of the characters need some updated character models and all that. I definitely think that's a big positive part of it. I also think that the general like gameplay loop is well considered from like a sort of baseline view. Like the appeal of this gameplay loop is like incredibly obvious to me. It's the reason why I even like, stuck with it for as long as I did, because I do really like the idea of, you come into a game and you slowly get stronger, and the stronger you get, like the more ways you can like outplay your opponents and stuff. Like that is a fun idea to me. And I think in terms of like that core gameplay experience in Summoner's Rift, I think it's pretty well considered for the most part. Like, obviously, you can have some nitpicks about balance or whatever, but like, it all just kind of works. Like, there's a lot that you can absolutely correctly like, flame Riot for, but I don't think the general gameplay is one of them, honestly. For a roster with over like 100 something characters, it's pretty impressive that the game frankly works at all. Like I think some characters are obviously always going to be a bit better than others, but yeah, I think it's well considered. I think it works. So yeah, and I know this is a point later down the line, but the music is also fantastic. Like all of the music that they do, whether it be those music videos or like the music in the game itself, which I don't think I agreed with at the time, but I definitely agree with now. Like even the game music itself is very good. Like it's lovely. So there are definitely way more points, but these are just some things that I can think of off the top of my head in terms of some other good things about League.
I would name the music videos as well, since the music Riot produces outside of the game is consistently top-notch, but it really doesn't have any impact on the playing experience. The in-game music itself is...
No, that's true. It doesn't. It doesn't have an impact on the playing experience. So that is true. But I guess I'm now more willing to sort of add that to like the general sort of pantheon of goodness that, like that League has to its name. If you couldn't tell, I was very bitter when I made this video.
There's nothing to write home about, unfortunately. Just fantasy-sounding background noise. So with that,
let's
jump
crazy.
into why League of Legends sucks so very much.
That is crazy. Oh wow. The mixing on this,
Matchmaking?
dude, the audio levels on this are so bad. Like it's so loud. The music is so loud for no reason, and then the voice kind of isn't that to match. So it's just really weird. But I just want to say like the Persona 5 music in the video is making me quite nostalgic.
Whoo boy. I'm just gonna come out and say it. The matchmaking in League of Legends is absolute shit. I have played the game mostly with friends who have been playing the game for a while, so granted that might impact my perspective on this point quite a bit.
I think it absolutely did. Because when you play this game for the first time, a lot of people have forgotten about this, but when you play this game for the first time, it's not really very fun at all. In fact, it's quite bad. The new player experience as far as League goes is absolutely horrible, because what ends up happening when you play with friends who have been playing the game for a while is that you end up being queued, at least in part, against people who are way better than you are, and that in a game like League of Legends is quite bad, because when an early lead can snowball out of control, it kind of sucks to be on the losing end of that because there's, you don't know how to play the game, so you don't know what ways you can really come back from that. I don't know. I think that definitely colored my perception of how the game's matchmaking works because having since played it a lot more, I would say that I am pretty consistently matched against people who are of a similar sort of skill level to me. At least it never quite feels as insurmountable as it did back then. It like there I played many games that I knew like from minute 5 were like over, right? And most of the time they were, unless some other player on the team really pulled their weight and really managed to get in there and carry the rest of the game. But yeah, so I definitely think playing with friends early on really colored my perception of the game without question.
But even when playing by myself, the matchmaking is a total mess. I am always fighting people who are above my skill level or people who are way below. There is
I don't think that way below thing actually happens. I don't think that really happens. Not that I can remember anyway. Maybe it did. Maybe like once or twice. But yeah, in those cases, I mean, that was kind of my own skill level in a way because the game was just kind of trying to figure out where I sat. Well, for one, it was still kind of trying to decide like in what skill range I belong, and I was losing games over and over and over again. So eventually, yeah, it would be strange if I didn't fight someone who was like way worse than me because I was only losing. Yeah, this might have happened, but if it did, I don't really remember it that well.
rarely a close game. This is in large part due to the enormous amount of Smurfs in the game. This is...
Okay, so this this bit with the clearly smurfing thing was more just a sort of like a jab at my friend. It was more like a joke. I was recording some of this footage playing against my friends, and I just wanted to make a joke about it. So that's where that came from. Funnily enough, I do actually really appreciate having to make this edit because it helped me out quite a lot in my further video editing career, as in like tracking objects with other objects and stuff. It was quite helpful. Just fun little side note.
This is a huge problem. Not only does it completely wreck the
not
matchmaking,
really.
it wrecks the games themselves. There are, from what I can come up with, 3 solutions for this.
Okay, so I don't disagree that there are problems with matchmaking like Smurfs. I just don't think it's as big of a problem as I'm making it out to be here. But I'm curious what 3 solutions I have. I totally don't remember this.
Either scale MMR more drastically when an account is playing its first few games and compensate later, put some kind of restriction in place for newly made accounts and matchmaking to deter new people from smurfing, or make smurfing a bannable offense.
So I actually don't really disagree with any of this, but I do think that scaling MMR faster is kind of already a thing. Like, I think I remember hearing that a new League of Legends account kind of has its MMR or its ELO like determined in the first 6 games, which I think is fairly reasonable, honestly. Yeah, restricting new accounts, I mean, there's definitely ups and downsides to this. I mean, ideally you don't want to have to do something like put in a phone number, but it would definitely get rid of a lot of Smurfs because, having to link it to a phone number, it puts a lot more barriers in place for a new account to be made. So, I don't know, I think that might help, but it also makes it harder for people who want to play on multiple regions, like I often do, sometimes in the Americas, sometimes in Europe. And so if you put a system like that in place, it would basically, unless you start buying multiple phone numbers, it would basically make that impossible, at least under the assumption that you can only link your phone number to one account. And if you could do it to multiple, I would link one phone number to multiple accounts, I would kind of question what the point of that even is. So I don't know. I don't know how you would go about this. I don't think that this is a great idea without any sacrifices, but if you really want to get Smurfs out of the game, that would be a pretty good way to do it. It wouldn't eliminate it entirely, but I don't think that's possible anyway. And ban Smurfs, I think they're already doing that. I guess they could get a bit better at recognizing it, but the line there is so thin. Like someone can just have a really good game, and not even know what they're doing themselves. So I don't know. It's tricky.
Smurfs are fun for themselves and maybe the team they happen to be on, but everyone else suffers for it. And when they suffer, they are more likely to participate in League's most notorious feature, toxicity.
Wait, so I love that. I love that Britney Spears image. That's really funny. I was not expecting Britney on my screen. I don't know. I totally forgot I did that. Yeah, okay. Let's keep watching.
To these toxic individuals, playing a losing game feels like a waste of time. And I can understand that. I can even understand getting angry. But I cannot and will not understand releasing your anger with the game on other people.
Okay. I pretty much still agree with that. I will say this play here, continuing to go for the tower, while my friend is trying to take down this Kale. I mean, nasty work, honestly. Like, I mean, that is certainly a thing that I could have done in that situation. I mean, good stuff, me from the past, but yeah. But yeah, no, I pretty much still agree with this, I would say. Like, I think that League's mechanics do have a tendency to bring out the worst in people because the mechanics are so carefully tuned to kind of like they're kind of like RPG mechanics. So if you're losing, I mean, or if like someone on your team is losing and is feeding like the bot lane or whatever, like I get that it can be really frustrating sometimes to still have to kind of play out the rest of that game because, like you might feel that it's already over. But even in that case, I still don't think it's okay to just like, call people slurs or to, get angry at people. We're still playing a game. Like, even in ranked, I still don't. I don't think that this is acceptable. Like, you're not like playing in the world championships for like I don't know, like an insane cash prize or whatever. So it's not that serious. I still completely stand by that. And I do think that this game still has a big toxicity problem. Though I will say that it has gotten better from my albeit limited experience. There can be quite nice interactions sometimes, but I don't know. I still don't like a lot of the vibe on League. It's just too hostile, when as a team you should really be working together. That's just my 2 cents. Toxicity doesn't really achieve anything. People like it might make people like feel better or whatever, but I don't think I've heard of anyone who's ever played better after hearing like themselves be called like a slur or whatever it might be, whatever like insult is thrown their way. If anything, being nicer boosts team morale and increases the chance of a comeback. So I would really like to instill that in any League of Legends players watching.
The reason this community is so bad is because no one gets punished. And when they do, it is often an incredibly lackluster punishment that doesn't deter anyone from doing much of anything. The reports...
So, I think this is kind of a misinformed point. Now I would probably say that I don't really have the data to back that up. But even let's just go on the assumption that what I'm saying here is true. I mean, Riot's in kind of a bind, right? Like, if there are truly so many people who are like this and they get banned, like, worst case, they never come back. And best case, they, like, do come back, but they come back as a Smurf and ruin sort of the gaming experience for other players. And they are probably going to be more sort of I don't know if vengeful is the right word, but they're definitely going to be a bit more like agitated, right? Because they just got banned. Maybe their account with like 1 million skins on it just got banned. So they're not going to be happy, and you're going to have these people in your community. But if you send them away, then that's money you're missing out on. So I frankly, I don't think it's right. I don't think, it should be let go. But I mean, when you look at it purely from sort of a business point of view, I kind of get that, Riot's in a bit of a pickle there, and that they aren't going to just make sweeping decisions like, all right, strike the ban hammer, let's do it. It's just not. It's just a bit more complicated than that. But I do still think that it ruins the fun. I still agree with that. But unfortunately, I just don't really think there's a lot you can do about it. I mean, I think it's kind of done now. They tried to have I don't know if they had the honor system yet at this time, but they did change it, I think, recently. And that might be an attempt to kind of, try and like push people to becoming like better Samaritans. But I don't know. I just don't really think that there's a whole lot they can or even will do in this area.
System is completely automated.
Aside from the
no
fact, or aside from the things that they're already doing.
Systems, the only way to get consistently banned in League is to either say all the swear words you could possibly imagine, or you run it down so hard that the system starts to notice something clearly wrong. The problem with this is that toxic behavior usually isn't as cut and dry as this. People who don't do things as bad as what I just mentioned, but still negatively affect the game, should be slammed with a ban hammer as well. Passive-aggressive comments and pinging are so much more frequent, but no actions are taken against these people because the system can't pick up on it. And let's say someone is...
Right. I do think that that is an interesting point. Like, I actually think that's quite an interesting point. I don't really think that that's a lot of... I don't think that's a point that a lot of people think about. I just don't really see how, in practice, like, this could be enforced. Like, I guess you could have, like, a bunch of human reviewers, but, I mean, there's a limit to that, right? I mean, like a limit to how much that sort of... how much sort of the ends justify the means in that regard, like how much budget that would cost, it's just not very realistic. So I do agree that like toxic behavior is a bit more sort of nuanced. And I do agree that probably a lot of systems wouldn't be able to really pick up on that. Though if they did find a way to do that, maybe, in the current state of the world with AI, they might be able to find a way to do that more efficiently. That might be helpful, but I don't know. I just, like as far as humans go, I just don't really see how just humans can really enforce that.
Losing incredibly hard. Even then, who knows if they're just having a
bad
game?
What was that? What did I put in there? I need to see it. Hold up. I sure as hell did. I don't remember what I was talking about.
And let's say someone is losing incredibly hard. Even
right. Okay. I sure as hell did. I was losing incredibly hard.
Then,
okay.
Riot recently made an announcement to make improvements to the reporting system on the running it down side of things. And while this is a step in the right direction, these systems should realistically already have been perfected when this game has been out for so long. Other games have gotten it right already. League of Legends has absolutely no excuse not to do the same.
I I have mixed feelings about this. I am, believe it or not, as maybe this video might not make it seem, but I'm usually not in the business of like, like stroking like some big corporation's dick. But I I don't know. I feel like with a lot of other games, there's just less variables like that go into a report system or like an automated like flagging system than it does in League, right? There are so many more variables you need to worry about, like like even items can be one. The like kind of the whole state of the game, what's happening, like what like are the other laners doing, and what are the other players doing in response to that. There are so many more there's so many more ways that like and subtleties in which like reports and stuff can kind of be thrown off, that I think saying that it would have had to have been perfected already feels a bit like kind of callous. I I don't know. But I do think there have been improvements in this area for sure. At least the sort of gameplay banning isn't, I think, as quite as big of a thing as it used to be. Oh, here we go. Now, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting.
Eternals.
Right.
Okay, you saw this coming. Screw Eternals. I don't think I need to explain why monetizing achievements is ridiculous. I think TB Skyen said it best in his video. Making achievements in your game free, even though it costs development time and resources, is just the cost of doing business. If you want more details and a better take on this whole thing than I could ever come up with, check out his video, link in the description. That being
So, first of all, again, shout out TB Skyen. Love him. He does some great work analyzing like animation and character designs and all that. Great stuff. I still completely agree with this. I think the whole Eternals thing was super weird and ridiculous, frankly. I don't think that should have been a monetizable feature. Not at all. And I think that a lot of people felt the same way, given that I think they kind of must have flopped, because I think they kind of quietly sort of like pulled them back after a while and they weren't really a thing anymore, which I think is for the best, because I don't know, I like the idea of Eternals. I think they're cool. But I just don't think that you should have to pay for them. I think that is, like, in most games, a pretty sort of basic gameplay feature. And the attempt to squeeze even a few more dollars out of a player just for like wanting to have some fun stats to show off for their favorite champion is kind of just slimy and scummy, in my opinion.
With this monetization scheme, they are preying on the people who cannot resist having the latest and shiniest way to display something that the game should realistically keep track of already. This is such an insane EA level stunt, and I'm glad people are rightfully speaking up about this.
So yeah, I think it really does kind of come down to that. I mean, like the game obviously like tracks like, what abilities connect and all that, and what the conditions are wherein they are, wherein these attacks connect and all that. Like it doesn't really warrant like any kind of purchase, in my opinion. It's just a small little thing, It's not like a big deal.
Honestly, I'm scared of how successful this will actually end up being. I couldn't find any numbers.
Well, I mean, it wasn't successful. So I guess I was worried for nothing. Also, these old like icons are really taking me back right now. Um, yeah, no, obviously, I don't think it ended up being very successful. But now, in the meantime, I would argue that like Riot has frankly implemented a lot of monetization methods that are probably way worse. Like, at least when you bought Eternals, like you didn't have to gamble for them with all these new skins that have been coming out. Like, you know, they can cost you upwards of like what, $500. Like, it's crazy. It's insane. And I think those have been a lot more successful than Eternals. And I don't know, that just seems a whole lot worse to me than Eternals. They're both bad, but one is clearly worse than the other in my opinion. Yeah, like one is clearly kind of, preying on, people with irresponsible spending habits. Um, Even if I do, enjoy myself a good gotcha system every once in a while, I do recognize that like the prices that, that this is dealing with is quite steep. It is quite steep. So I I don't really disagree with any of the criticism that has been levied against the new skins, like I think they're called the Exalted skins, and like the esports player skins, like the Ari one, and I think there was another one that I forgot about. But those really expensive ones. I don't think you had to gamble for the Ari one, but the price of that was still ridiculous in and of itself, and clearly sort of aimed at the whales who want to fully complete their collection.
But I can imagine plenty of people falling for this. If you were thinking of getting an Eternal for your favorite champion, I beg of you, please don't. Please just don't reward Riot for doing this.
And
the
people
League
didn't.
community needs to form a front on this.
Yeah.
To make sure Riot cannot get away with doing this. Which I, unfortunately, already think they have. Anyway, next on the agenda is...
I'm really sad that I didn't explain why I thought that. But no, they didn't get away with it, which is good.
Is leaving a like and subscribing to be notified of every new video.
Yeah, guys.
That's the good stuff, you guys.
Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Oh my god, the music is so loud again. Oh, I think I know what's coming. I still don't like Illaoi. I still don't like Illaoi. I think she's annoying as shit, but I think there are characters that are way worse than her. And like on average, I would say. But I still ban Illaoi every game out of principle.
Game balance.
Oh, here we go.
I was originally going to go more in depth in this section than I actually ended up doing in the draft of the script that I'm reading from right now. Frankly, I wanted to make the points fit more of an analytical perspective, but I don't think I'm cut out to do so in this case.
So, in this case, I should have manned up and just said, I am not capable of performing this analysis properly, so I won't. Right? Or I actually do the research and then come back more educated. But now I was kind of just doing this sort of like half-assed thing where I was working off of incomplete knowledge, like of the game as well as the characters. And like I wasn't good at the game, and I'm still not. And I think there is something to be said for a like less experienced player's perspective on how they look at things. But I think I should have framed it more as such and less of like a, like, and make, I guess, a bit like less sweeping statements in this case, and maybe offer up some more like suggestions, if that makes sense.
I am simply not of a high enough skill level with League
Okay,
where I can
I do
solidly
acknowledge that.
grasp
Okay.
where the balance of it goes wrong. What I can do is make more general observations about my experiences with the game balancing and what I think about it, much like the other parts of this video. So, what do I think about the balancing? Well, this might come as a shock to you, but it's not great. How about that? First off,
These like cuts to black, I don't really know what the vibe of that was. I needed something else on screen there. It's really bothering me. For the record, I don't think this is a good video anymore. Like, I remember the last time I watched this, like a couple of years ago, I remember thinking, man, this video is not great.
so many champions with tons of dashes, dumb passives, or insane stats. At least
So, I do think there is some manner of, like, power slash, like, utility creep in a lot of these characters. You know, like generally there is a pretty big difference between characters that are being released now versus ones that were released, you know, near the start of the game's life, which obviously makes sense once you start making like 100+ characters. You know, what are you really going to do? You know, you kind of have to go somewhere, and that means that eventually things are going to get a bit more complicated. That said, I do think that that most of the things that are in this game are still like pretty counter playable, if that makes sense. I was using Yasuo as an example here, but I just like I only thought that Yasuo was really obnoxious through not knowing how his passive works, like or like how his dashes work, I should say. That made it frustrating because I just thought that he was getting dashes out of nowhere, and it seemed to be for no rhyme or reason when that there obviously is, and then you can kind of play against it when you know how it works. So this is one of those cases where I'm like, I should have shut up about that.
Also, I said I wasn't going too deep into this, but one champion I want to quickly highlight is Illaoi.
Here we go.
Illaoi is a badly designed champion. Let me paint a scenario for you. Say you're fighting Illaoi in the top lane. You're playing a tank, you're getting your CS, things are going well. You decide that since Illaoi is on the low side of her health, you go after her once she grabs a minion close to you. Now that's where you're thinking wrong, buddy. You don't just go after Illaoi. What are you, stupid? Because this character is very cool and obviously very well made, after you get your first ability out, she rips your soul out of you, presses R, and starts to slap you into submission.
So, I mean, I was like in this clip, for example, I was already 3 levels behind, so there was really nothing that I could have done in this situation, which is kind of frustrating in and of itself, right? Like, you know, to a degree, like, you know, like your gold and your levels are kind of what matter more than, you know, whether you actually outplay someone in a fight. But you could argue that, you know, like that all factors into outplaying someone, and that you need to be cognizant of all these things. To which I would say, yeah, you're probably right. But even so, that was still terribly played. Like, there was nothing that, you know, like I didn't really do anything right in that clip. And I think that's where a lot of my frustration, especially with Illaoi, was coming from. I still don't like fighting her, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not... She's definitely not like an insurmountable threat. No character in this game is, I would say. You know, some are definitely better than others, but not all of them are, or not a single one of them is like, you know, absolutely unstoppable. You know, maybe aside from a new character being released or whatever and being broken like on launch week or whatever. But in this case, like, I mean, this was clearly all just a sort of like an anger fueled rant.
Because Illaoi has Conqueror, or maybe Lifesteal, she heals back up and leaves you at a massive disadvantage. Now you have 2 options. You either try to fight her and die, or you try to walk away, get slowed because your soul re-entered your body, and she then comes after you for round 2, and you also die.
I do think that when this happens, this is incredibly annoying, without question. I always hate when that happens. Being hit by Alawi's little tentacles is like the worst feeling ever. I'm not gonna lie. So I I do sort of sympathize with myself, my past self to an extent.
A lot of other champions are just as annoying to fight. Yuumi is an insane healer that can be played using literally only your feet. Yeah, people legitimately play this way. Yasuo has
This is true, and I do think it's funny. Yeah, there's been a whole lot of debate about Yuumi, but I've kind of come down on Yuumi in a way where I'm like, yeah, I mean, Yumi's kind of just the easy mode character, and I think characters like that do have a place. I think especially like for most cases, right? Like for most scenarios, having a character like Yumi in the game is perfectly fine. I don't know, it might not be appropriate in a pro environment, but honestly, I'm not really sure about that. But even then, what is and what isn't right, I guess that's kind of what the community decides. Um, but I've decided that I don't really care that much about Yumi anymore. And for the people who otherwise aren't very drawn to this game but can kind of play it because Yumi's in it, that's great. And I think that kind of has a right to exist.
Teemo makes the entire battlefield more of a minefield. This might be his one trick, but that trick is literally only fun for him and no one else.
I do kind of agree with this to an extent. It's pretty insufferable to fight Teemo. I'm not gonna lie. I do still like playing him, but he is kind of annoying sometimes. I will say.
Playing Teemo myself, but when you're fighting him, he's a constant frustration.
What is up with like the
especially
glowing
when you're playing a
text?
melee
Why is that?
character.
Why is it like
Those
that?
are just a few examples, but something else I've noticed is the straight up power creep this game has.
Yeah.
Aphelios and Sett are just two of the new champions that come with insanely complex or powerful kits. Aphelios being more of both, and Sett just being the latter. That makes it so the previously released champions have no hope of keeping up, except for a few outliers, obviously. Instead, Riot puts a band-aid over the actual problem by releasing reworks for older champions that wouldn't have needed them if Riot didn't want to stuff every new character to the brim with jank. I'm personally incredibly salty about Volibear's rework.
I do think there's actually a point to be made about that. But at the same time, I kind of think it's inevitable. There's no way that you can keep a game running this long without running into like some kind of like feature creep, or like a skill creep or whatever, ability creep, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't really think that that's possible. And so reworks were always going to happen. It's better for them to like have some actual effort put into them and like, keep the sort of like general play style of the champion alive with some added bonuses, rather than them just falling into obsolescence or new characters not being released or new characters releasing that are very reminiscent of like the characters that already exist.
I think as soon as Volley disappears forever and a hollow clone replaces him, everyone's going to hate it. A tank with a lot of items being able to take hits from towers is fine enough, but potentially every teammate being able to completely annihilate enemies or towers themselves while being in their range with no consequences, that, to me, sounds like an awful time.
I definitely overblew this whole thing. Volibear was completely fine, and I think people enjoy him as one of the more successful reworks. I think. I'm not entirely sure how the community at large feels about him, but I think people are generally pretty positive. So, yeah.
Other part of the game that seems incredibly unbalanced are the summoner spells. So the game lets you pick from quite a few of them, and that's
interesting.
Great. You got a ton of cool ones like Exhaust, Ghost, Heal, Ignite, and oh wait, it's just Flash and something else basically no matter what. Flash is way, and I mean way too good. It is so good that basically every character in the game prefers Flash along with some other spell, most common of which are Teleport, Ignite, and Heal. This might be a controversial take, but either Flash's power needs to be significantly decreased or it should be removed entirely.
This is an interesting is an interesting point because on the surface, yes, like Flash is obviously too good, right? Like Flash is really strong. I guess in a world where you want like all the sort of where you want all the summoner spells to be equal in power, that might not be a good idea. But I don't know if that's what they want. I think Flash adds a lot of like sauce to the game, in all honesty. Like Flash definitely allows for a lot of really cool plays. So I don't know. I think reducing its power would kind of be a mistake. And I don't know if it would necessarily result in more summoner spell variety necessarily. Um, just because of the way that the ones they have in the game already work. I think if Flash were to be removed, I think what would happen, or what I say removed, but if it were like decreased in power to the point where it would not be like sort of the correct option in most cases, you would kind of have a different summoner spell that would take that slot, I would imagine. Like maybe Ghost would do that instead, because positioning is really important in this game. So any tool that's going to allow you to do that more efficiently is going to kind of rise to the top. That's why teleport is so strong. Um, so I don't know. I just don't really. I guess I don't really see this as much of a problem anymore. And I also don't think the developers necessarily see it that way. I think Flash can be quite cool, and that I don't know. It doesn't necessarily need to be on par in terms of pick rate with other summoner spells, in my opinion.
To allow for more spell variety. It's an imbalance people seem to have accepted, and one which the game is balanced around, but in my opinion, the game would be better off without it. Like I said, it's an immensely powerful tool that almost guarantees an escape or kill every time it is used. A league where there are many viable spell builds,
But it doesn't do that, though. It doesn't guarantee it. It just makes it more likely because, another player could use their flash in response, or the flash might come out too late, or too early, or whatever, right? It's not a get out of jail free card. You still have to go about using it thoughtfully. You can't just throw it around. So I don't know. I think this is a pretty moot point, all things considered.
Okay, so learning this game is hard. Way too hard.
I agree.
I have never seen such an insanely high skill floor like this before. Personally, I am very much against games having a high skill floor. If you design a game to be played by tons of people and your players can't get into it because it's way too hard, you've failed as a designer. Simple as that.
So I think this is assuming developer intentions, by assuming that they want as many people as possible to get into this game, which I guess is a fair assumption. I guess I would assume that even now. But maybe that wasn't true at the time. Like, I don't know. Maybe they were content with whatever player base they currently had, and they were just kind of working on suiting them. I guess it really depends on what the intentions of the developers were. That said, I do still think it's really hard to learn League of Legends, but I will say that the game actually recently has made quite a few strides in that department. Like the WASD controls being implemented, I think is long overdue, and is obviously a great accessibility improvement for the game. I don't think there's a reasonable case to be made that this did not need to be implemented sooner or later. Same with dynamic camera. I think the dynamic camera, like the dynamic locked camera, that is going to be so useful. I think the way that the old camera worked still obviously has its uses, and I'm sure people will continue using it. But I think having the dynamic locked camera is a great feature, one that I think especially could have been implemented ages ago, and the fact that it's only been done now after like I don't know 5 years I think it was since I made this video, that is kind of insane to me. Um, but better late than never, I suppose. I get it a bit more in the case of WASD because that obviously has a lot more sort of like gameplay implications. Um, like how ADCs work and all that. But I think in general, I mean, this is a great improvement. And I'm very curious what form they will end up taking when they actually release, because they haven't properly released as of the recording of this video. So, yeah. But I think that League has already made a lot of strides in this regard. I think they've also improved the tutorials, if I remember correctly, which was also sorely, sorely, sorely needed.
Basic concepts should be easy to grasp and should get you a decent start in playing the game. Mastery comes from exploiting the mechanics in creative ways. Okay, hi, editing Dex from the future here. I wanted to add something to this statement because by what I just said, I don't mean hard games are bad. What I mean is that your game shouldn't be hard to get into. I hate to use it as an example, but a hard game like Dark Souls is incredibly easy to get into. The mechanics are all very clear right from the first battle, and the controls take no time at all getting used to. The difficulty comes from learning the patterns of your opponents and how to best exploit them. Same for a game like Cuphead or even other competitive games like Street Fighter or, yeah, I'm really going here, Fortnite. What I think gives League such a high skill floor I'll get into in a sec, but I just wanted to make sure you don't take what I said the wrong way. Regardless, that's all I wanted to say. On with the rest of the video. How can you
So, I named Street Fighter as like one of the examples of games being easy to get into, when I would say that fighting games on the whole probably have some of the highest skill floors out of any game. Like, traditional fighting games are no fun if you have no idea what you're doing. Like, I would say that those games only become enjoyable once you actually know how to play them. And the road to getting there is kind of just miserable. I don't know what I was cooking with that one, but yeah, I disagree with that. I disagree with Street Fighter. I do think I kind of sort of can see my point, like to a certain extent. I do think that if you are trying to make a game that has mass appeal, yeah, I mean accessibility and like the controls and mechanics being easy to pick up, and making sort of the design of your game kind of intuitive, I think that is definitely a high priority. And I definitely do think for a new player, League is still lacking in that regard. I think WASD, the improved tutorials, and the dynamic locked camera will definitely help in that regard. But there are definitely a lot of issues that that the game still has in that regard that I don't know are really resolved by that, and I don't know if they ever will be. Like, I still find the way that, like where in what lane, like how people determine like what lane certain characters should go into. I still find that like completely like obtuse and unintuitive. I don't know how you would even begin to parse that as a new player. I think that's one of those things that you can only really sort of pick up through osmosis. There's no, because technically any character can be played in any lane, but obviously in some lanes they are way better than in others. And I don't think anyone can really explain that to you aside from like some more obvious examples, like, I don't know, a support like Malphite, not Malphite, Nautilus is what I was thinking of. Like a support like Nautilus, obviously, I mean, you could try and make it work like maybe top lane, but all in all, I mean, it's clearly a character that is made to be supportive, so it will function better in a role where it can do that, like a support. And I think those are pretty easy to explain, but I think a lot more sort of like, I don't know, like obtuse examples, uh, like, you know, I'm looking here at the screen. Like, there's a Garen in the game. Like, try explaining to a new player why does Garen need to be in top lane? Well, because a lot of like bruisers and tanks go there. Okay, well, why do they go there? You know, and I think that is like a lot more, I don't know, difficult for a new player to parse. Like, it doesn't really make sense why players play these characters in certain roles, especially when you don't have anyone there to kind of tell you where you should play what character, right? Um, so I do think that that is a big problem, and that I don't know if that's one that League will ever really solve or even attempt to solve. I think they kind of have tried to do that, with sort of the recommended like tabs for where, you know, what characters go. Um, like, you know, like you can click in champ select like the different roles, and that definitely does help. But I always found that a bit like it wasn't like good enough for me, because I wanted to understand like, why is a jungler, right? And now I would have a bit of an easier time explaining that, but that didn't really make a lot of sense to me when I was still playing the game for the first time. And I don't think you should really need to have someone beside you who's explaining, oh yeah, this is why these characters work here and this is why they work there, in order for that to be sort of more like intuitively understandable.
But how are you even supposed to know what champions you like? There are over 100 of them to choose from, so it's an incredibly daunting task to try them all out. Here's where we run into problems. For one, there is no short game mode where you can pick any champ you want and try them out for a quick match to see how you like them.
This has been addressed to an extent, right? This has been addressed, sort of, right? Like, it's still not entirely like, you know, you can't just pick any character you want still, but with the arrival of Arena, and now that that is pretty much a permanent game mode, I want to say, like, I don't really see how they come back from this not being a permanent game mode at this point in time. But with that kind of being here to stay, that is a sort of low stakes, like, kind of casual environment where you can try out new characters that you might otherwise not have tried. There are still some factors of gameplay that obviously don't really factor into Arena, like, you know, like clearing the wave or jungling or things like that. But I do think for like getting a feel for a character's like base concept and abilities and stuff, I think Arena is a great way to do that. And I think that Arena is a great game mode. I think it's exactly the kind of thing that League needs more of.
To game modes more in a bit, but let me touch on the surface of them here. You either have ARAM, which is quick, but you get a champion randomly assigned from the ones that are playable for you at that time. Then, there might be a Brawl on rotation, like Earth or Poro King, but these are very different from the main game and don't really feature the actual playstyles of the champions well. So there's that, or you play a full game of Summoner's Rift.
So I guess by that logic, Arena wouldn't be good for that either, but I think yeah, in the case of Earth, you might be able to say that it isn't really representative of the character sort of like general play style. But I don't know, like other brawls, like, I don't know, One for All or Ultimate Spellbook or things like that, are definitely modes that you can kind of casually try a character out in. again, I think this was me trying to find like the most cynical view of the game possible and kind of uh, assigning that to pretty much anything that I could kind of shoehorn that view into. I think where a lot of this criticism came from in my case was the fact that I just didn't really get it. You know, um, I didn't really get it, and I wanted to be part of the whole phenomenon. I wanted to be part of everything, and I wanted to take part, and I wanted to enjoy it when I did. And I think there's definitely some valid points in this video, but I also think there are a lot of not valid points in this video, and the the I don't know, a lot of it seems a bit overly mean spirited, but I don't know, it reads to me in retrospect more like an attempt to kind of convince myself that this game isn't worth playing anyway, when in reality I really wanted to play it because all my friends were playing it, and I wanted to play it with my friends, and I still do. And that's why I kept playing it even after making this video. Um, and yeah, I think it really comes through that this video is quite resentful, not really a really well-made video, in my opinion.
On top of that, there's also no way of trying out champions you don't own outside of the weekly rotation. Well, except for renting them by spending the resources you use to buy them. You
Yeah.
can't even try unowned
I
champions.
do think the renting system is really stupid. I don't know if that's still in the game, but I think the renting system is really bad. And I do think there should be other ways of being able to get all the champions you want. I kind of wish that League would do a sort of like thing like what Smite has, where you can just buy like all the characters in one go, and you get all of the future ones like for free as well. Now I know you can do that kind of with a Game Pass, but that is like a recurring subscription, and as soon as you cancel it, you kind of lose all the perks of that. So I wish there was something in the game itself, like an all champions pack, price it at like, I don't know, $30, and you just get all the champs and any of the ones that, you like that might come out in the future. And I think that would be a really great way to get access to all the characters, and that would be definitely something that I would pay for. Whereas like skins and stuff, I just don't really care about. Like I just don't really care about spending money on that kind of thing. So yeah, it would be a nice way for Riot to monetize the experience for new players as well. I think that would be a really helpful thing. And it would also be nice to just have access to all the characters at all times without having to need to play the game for like Lord knows how long. Oh my god, it's so loud. It's so loud. I love the song though, it's so good.
Content. Lastly, I wanted to go over the content within the game. From the outside looking in, with so many champions, it seems like there must be an
This is the one that I
endless
was
amount
waiting
of things
for.
to do to keep you busy. And while there definitely are a great number of champs, that's about all the game has going for it in terms of content. And this is still assuming you even get to play most of them. When you're starting out, you frankly don't get too many choices. So then, after a game or two of Summoner's Rift, you might want to turn your attention to the other modes that are available. I went over the game modes very quickly in the last section, but at most, there are only 3 modes available at a time: Summoner's Rift, ARAM, and a brawl like Earth or Poro King, though these are only up during certain times.
Poro King, I don't think they've released that in ages. But yeah, I still think that even with the arrival of Arena, I'm not going to count TFT as a League game mode. That is just its own thing. It's not even remotely the same gameplay. But still, having at most like 4 modes available is pretty embarrassing. I just don't see still how they like can't have at least like, I don't know, 2 or 3 brawls up at all times. I know that they don't want to dilute like the player pool too much, but also like I think you got more than enough people who are playing this game. Maybe the exception to that might be like Oceania. Uh like they might have like a bit of a shortage of players there, and it might be worth like I don't know, implementing a sort of more limited game mode selection in those regions, like where that might be the case. But I think other than that, like there's really no reason to be limiting game modes like this, in my opinion. I think that you should have a broad range of game modes to choose from. Look at Overwatch, like they have the same thing going on. You can play tons and tons of game modes. You can play whatever you want, and it does fine. So I just don't really think that that League should be any different in this case. And even if they're not going to be queuable, like in the main sort of like menu, right? They should at the very least always be playable in custom games. I don't care what the excuse is. Even like the old like brawls and stuff, like the old like the one that they had with the Anima Squad, like the sort of Vampire Survivors thing. Like those should all be playable in custom games all the time, without exception. Um, I just don't understand why they would remove that. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, and that hypothetical short game mode where you could try out new champions that I just mentioned, well, it used to exist, and it was called Twisted Tree Line.
Oh, bring back Twisted Tree Line.
3-on-3 game
yes.
mode that was fun and low pressure for when Summoner's Rift becomes too
I
much.
actually do miss
But
Twisted
Riot
Tree Line. I
decided
really
to
wish they brought that back.
remove this game mode, yet provides no new worthwhile content to make up for it. All we ever get is paid battle passes and skins, skins, skins. The common argument that has been made by players as well as Riot themselves is that these modes aren't being played as much as the other modes, so they take meaningful development time away from parts of the game that could benefit from it much more. But the thing is, they shouldn't have to. In case you forgot, Riot is not an indie studio. Riot is a multi-billion-dollar company. They have more resources than we could ever comprehend having access to. So we should be able to expect, at the very least, 8 game modes playable at all times with 4 different maps overall. Not all game modes need to have different maps, just different modifiers that shake up the gameplay in a meaningful way. Something like Earth, and 1 or 2 modes that are something totally unique like ARAM. Riot can easily do this, but instead they strip the game down as much as possible, holding hollow events that don't add much of anything and pass it off as new content. In this regard, Riot is unambitious at best, lazy and completely anti-consumer at worst. In a recent blog post, Riot addresses the lack of new game modes.
So, I think I'm being pretty harsh here, but I guess the core of it I do sort of agree with. I think a lot of this we kind of have gotten now. I kind of want to go back to this list. So 8 game modes playable at all times. We obviously aren't there yet. We're at 4. I do think 8 game modes playable at all times is probably what they should be striving for, in all honesty. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't need to be like some crazy stuff like Nexus Blitz or like the Vampire Survivor thing. It can just be like it can just be like a small little like gameplay tweak, like One for All or like Earth or Ultimate Spellbook, that sort of thing. I think those modes should just be queuable at all times, and you can see that it's possible because Wild Rift also does that. Wild Rift has tons of modes available all the time, and I think that they could really benefit to I feel like the PC team could really benefit to learn a lot from Wild Rift. because I think Wild Rift does a lot of these things a lot better. And yeah, 4 unique maps, including Summoner's Rift and Howling Abyss, Howling Arena. I don't remember what it's called. Howling Abyss, I think. That is also pretty reasonable. I think we're kind of there already. If we have Nexus Blitz up, and then I guess you could count Arena maybe. Then I guess we're kind of there. If you count Arena as all different maps entirely, then we're already there. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that that should count. But it could definitely count as one. So yeah, I don't know. Just add more modes. Just do it. Like, there's just no reason not to do it. I do sympathize with the view of development resources could be better spent on other things. And that was their view at the time, I believe. But I think that started to shift a little bit. Given the fact that Arena is now permanent and all that. And often it's not up to the developers to really decide the budgets, and it's just some big wig, who's making that decision. So yeah, to put it all on Riot, or on the developers is a bit unfair, I suppose.
Holding hollow events that don't add much of anything and pass it off as new content. In this regard,
I do still
Riot
think
is
the battle
unambitious
passes
at
were
best,
horrible.
lazy and completely anti-consumer.
I think they're better
at
now,
worst.
but they were definitely
In a recent
horrible.
blog post, creating a new game mode that significantly deviates from League's core gameplay, such as the PvE nature of Odyssey or Alt-WinCon of Darkstar Singularity, takes a while to get right. And ultimately, we want to make sure that the amount of time we spend in development is worth the amount of time y'all get enjoying it. That said, we've heard the feedback around events lately, specifically that it feels like their quality has dropped over time. Beyond offering an alternative game mode with every event, which has included One for All and AR Earth so far, with Nexus Blitz returning this summer, we're still working on other improvements to things like the event pass system and mission variety. We hope to slowly make positive changes throughout the course of 2020. So basically, what Riot is saying here is eat shit, bitch. Not as many people are playing as we would like, so we aren't making anything of note either. AR Earth and One for All are all simple game modes that not only should be playable at all times,
I don't really think that is a fair assessment. Based on what that post said, that post was talking a lot more about actual events. And while I do agree that AR Earth and One for All and stuff shouldn't really be an event, I do understand that they're not going to have these things of Odyssey or Darkstar Singularity up all the time, because those are supposed to be like seasonal events or whatever. I think it's kind of a waste to make something like that sort of expansive and then just have it playable for, I don't know, a month and then get rid of it forever. But I do understand that if they're not going to do that, then obviously making crazy game modes like that all the time is just not really a worthwhile investment, even if I do hope that they continue to do that. Because that Vampire Survivors thing was pretty fun.
AR Earth and One for All are all simple game modes that not only should be playable at all times, we should be able to recreate them in custom games ourselves too. They are used as examples for event game modes here. Why? To indicate a direction Riot is going in. Do as little as possible, screw ambition, screw exciting your players. If you can do the bare minimum, basically steal your players' money for basic features, and all the while you don't make anyone too upset, you can get away with all of it. This working philosophy is noticeable throughout the entirety of League, and frankly, Riot is doing jack to fix it.
Wow. Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So. Right. Okay. Right. That was a trip to go back and rewatch that. Um, Overall, I would say the video itself is not very well made. Um, it was overall pretty bitter video. And I think League has made a lot of positive changes since making this video. Also, some that have been for the worse, um, but definitely a lot of positive changes for sure. Um, and yeah, as far as like the rest of this video goes, I don't know. I think there's some good points in there, but it's kind of like a sort of like it really has a lot of rough edges. It's not very well articulated, and it's very bad faith criticism overall. And I just don't really think it's that good. Um, I would be interested to see what I could make of a similar video in this style. Um, but kind of make it with sort of the knowledge that I have today. That would be interesting to sort of dive back into. Um, but yeah, overall, I thought it was really fun to sort of revisit this video, like my most popular video ever, and kind of see what holds up and what doesn't. Um, and yeah, I realized that I've been recording for quite a while, so uh, I think I'm going to stop talking now, but let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you would like to see more kind of similar videos like this, I plan on recording sort of like a similar sort of talking reaction type videos in the near future. Kind of dipping my toe back into YouTube. And yeah, for now, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.